Hola, hello, welcome to another episode, the We Should Talk series of bilingual Spanish-English conversation hosted and produced by Yannis Lobaina Me. We should talk about life, motherhood, dreams, art, grief, success. Hablaremos de la vida, de la maternidad, de los sueños, del arte, de los sucesos, de las pérdidas y de nuestro proceso como inmigrantes.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of We Should Talk. And today I have a special guest. As always say, I just invite people who are really resonate and aligned with them, and artists who I really admire. So today I have Lyla Rye, a Canadian artist and mentor and multifaceted person. So we will have the delight to be with her in this episode and talk about her artistic practice, all the background she do, all the help she do. So let me introduce Lyla Rye. She studied architecture, but then she changed. It's like me. We changed the path and the career, and I love that. Changed to a painting and under the graduate study at the York University. She took there drawing, painting, and also she have a master degree at the San Francisco Art Institute. It's a beautiful place, focusing installation, video, and photography. But also, she having professional practice and exhibit over 30 years. Madre mia, we have a lot to learn from Lyla, and that's one of the reason I invite her to listen. That wise person. I love it. Also, Lyla having collaborate and in programs like Toronto, University of Toronto, in the continuing study, and the Toronto School of Art as well. The Ontario College of Art, she taught course and also prepared course for other programs as well. So with more fatherhood, let's go. We should talk with Lyla. So I will like Lyla. Welcome.
Thank
Welcome to
you.
this
I
space.
just spilled matcha on myself, so hopefully that doesn't show.
It's okay. Let's see. You're so funny. That's I love it. Welcome, Lyla, to this space. We
Well,
should talk.
Thank you for inviting me. It's lovely.
You're welcome. Let's go to talk. Let's go to close your eyes and back long time ago. Do you remember the smell that your childhood home?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
The smell. Not so much. It's more the quality of light, I think I remember from that. There was this big staircase up the front that had a landing and turned and a long light. And I really liked sitting on the landing, but smell, no, I can't say I do.
Oh, it's okay. It just, I love that question because sometimes smell, it can bring you back to a childhood memories or many other things we have inside.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I recently saw a photo of you in Facebook with a little girl and I love that photo. And I was like, oh my God, she looks so cute. And the place, the house. So that's the reason I asked that question.
Yeah.
Where you grew up, Lyla?
I grew up in Toronto. I was born in Bracebridge, this little town a couple hours north, but my parents moved to Toronto soon after I was born. And so, yeah, I've lived here most of my life, minus a couple years in San Francisco and, half a year here and there. So, yeah, I'm pretty much a Torontonian.
Torontonian. Yeah, love it. I love Torontonian. So that's beautiful. Thank you so much. Um, let's go to talk about, tell us a little bit. As I say before, you have a long career, 30 years more.
plus.
And you're younger. You start very young, so that's the reason you are 30 years. So tell us a little bit how was your how you began your art career.
Okay. Well, as you mentioned, I did study architecture for a couple years, and I'm very proud that I did not flunk out, but I did not like it. So after 2 years, I sunk into a really bad depression, and the thing that got me out of it was kind of starting to think about making art. And my father was a lawyer, but my mom went back to school doing art when I was in high school. And we had always gone, whenever we traveled, you have to go to the local cemetery, and you have to go to the museum and the gallery. So those are the musts of any
Wow.
place you go to. So, I grew up, ballet, symphony. It was very, I was very lucky to get that exposure. So yeah, so art, even though I didn't do it in high school, after architecture school, that sort of felt like a comforting place where I felt like I could fit. And yeah, so then in York, I went to York University, but I had to kind of come in through the back door. Like I couldn't even apply to fine arts or visual arts because I didn't have a portfolio, because I didn't do art in high school. So I had to take they called it the non-majors program, which was taught by graduate students. And I got very lucky to have Sylvia Bélanger, who's an amazing artist from Quebec. And she was just incredibly inspiring and just kind of got me hooked. And then, yeah, as I said, because of the painfulness of architecture, I didn't want to go anywhere near that. I didn't want to do sculpture. I didn't want to do anything. So I mainly did drawing and painting. And then only in my third year, I took an independent studies. No, it was my fourth year. I don't even remember. Took an independent studies.
Don't worry.
It's a long time.
Don't worry.
And independent studies in painting. And then, the paintings came off the wall and I started building things to paint from. And then finally I said to my advisor, I said, can I just make sculpture? So it was like sculpture, but, it was like I wasn't really satisfied with objects. So I started making multiple objects to fill space. And then that led to kind of then building constructions to occupy whole spaces, and let that kind of body of work led me into my master's. And actually the video work didn't happen till I had a child.
Really?
Yeah. So that was 10 years later. And then I was just videotaping her as a doting mom, just thinking she was the most miraculous thing in the universe.
Yes, of course. Let's go. I have that question here because you are like me. We are mother, so and I think our career changed a lot and shape because we are mother now, and that's something in common. I saw you tell me one day, and I remember how you start to. And yes, it's something in common I have as well. I have like all my hard drives are full of Emily photos. Like really, I had to do something with that. Well, so let's go talk about that. How motherhood, how being a mother, younger, no, has changed your career, but also nurture as well. No, let's go.
Yeah. Well, it's very fascinating because you'd think that, you're a mom and, I was working, and both my partner and I are artists. So not a lot of money, you're scraping to make ends meet. But actually it was one of the most productive times in my life. And I think it was because I was so happy. I think it was just like I was so happy, and I'd never really hung out with babies. I did babysitting, but they were older kids, like kids, but not babies. And so they're just so fascinating.
And also your own creation, no? Like your own mold.
Exactly. Well, and if you breastfeed, it's kind of like I made this, I fed it's like I grew this person.
Yes, absolutely.
It's hard to believe. So yeah, so I found I was really efficient with my time. I was very happy. I was engaged, and then I started videotaping her. And I think the first video I did of her, maybe she was about 3-4 months old. I think is that when they start to sit up, or is that more like 6 months?
It's dependent the kid.
Somewhere in there.
Around.
Anyways, so I think when I took the video, she was 3 months old because she was lying down. And then I didn't really get to look at it till she was about 6 months old. And it was a video just of her. I wanted to get her dreaming, like all those expressions that go across their face, like they have this wild fantasy life. But she ended up crying. But I held myself back from picking her up immediately. And I just filmed the crying for a little bit. And then finally I couldn't handle it and I got her. But when I looked at it, and more importantly, she looked at it a few months later, when she saw herself crying on the TV, she started crying.
Oh,
so I thought that, like, is that the beginning of empathy? Is that just mirroring? Like, what? That's fascinating, right? And so I did a whole bunch of research into developmental psychology and how kids learn. And there's a really great author, Alison Gopnik, who's written a whole series of books, very readable, and she explains not just the findings, but actually how they do the experiments. And anyway, so that's sort of
yes. You are like me. We like to research and
yeah. So that became the first body of video work, was just came out of watching her and just kind of filming her on the fly. So no lights, no setup, no nothing. I just, like, when she was doing something interesting, I'd grab the camera. But it sort of had to come to an end when I realized she was performing for the camera.
Of course.
And then it wasn't what I wanted it to be. So I had to sort of shift again.
Yes, kids are very smart. They know. No, with my daughter, I hide the camera all the time. And we do stuff around, and it's kind of more natural because they know. Even they don't talk, they know you film. Or, I don't know. They come with a chip already.
Yeah, well, I even did one video, which were all the outtakes, like what I would have normally considered outtakes, when she saw the camera. And it's basically her running towards the camera from multiple different takes saying, I want to see baby. I want to see baby. Because that's what she, I don't know if she didn't quite recognize it as herself, but that's how she described it, is she just thought of the camera not so much as capturing the image, but as showing, because of course digital cameras have the screen. So she always was like running towards me saying, I want to see baby.
Oh, that's so cute. Oh, that's very sweet. I love that. We will have to do something with that. I would love to do something with you about that. Let's go talk about a little bit more about your practice now. What are the main themes and topics you are interested in exploring now as a multidisciplinary artist, because you are now?
Well, it's interesting because it actually comes back to my daughter in a funny way too. It's about the environment mainly now, but that, I mean, of course, all of our awarenesses have been raised. But on top of that, my daughter was a tree planter for 5 summers during university. So, and for people who don't know, that's a very common summer job for university students. They make a ton of money and they have to work like dogs way up in the bush. The really good planters plant 3,000 trees a day.
Yes,
just to get a sense of the labor, right? Yeah. Crazy intense. But anyway, she would send back videos just like, hi mom, this is what I'm doing. And then one year I said, oh, maybe I can get her and some fellow tree planters to take videos for me, because I thought, oh, I'd love to see a clear cut. But then I caught, well, if I'm really being environmental, I can't fly or drive to this place to see all this. So I thought, well, they can film it for me. And so it's cell phone shots, so it's handheld. And then I got them to actually send it to me via Messenger, which kind of compresses it. and makes it really, really chunky and pixelated, and there's artifacts. And so I thought, well, that reveals the process and the fact that, you know, you're not witnessing this firsthand. It's a mediated reference. So anyway, so that, you know, yeah, just concerns about the environment have kind of come up to the surface too. But I'm always working on I usually have a home project as well as a studio project. And my home project for the last year or so has been mending the quilts that my grandmother made, who I was named after. But not just mending them, also, well, the first one I annotated. I brought it to a family picnic and got my aunts and uncles to try to remember the specific fabrics. Like, okay, oh, this was Dad's nightshirt. Oh, this was Mom's apron. This was Mom's dress. This was Paul's pajamas. So I embroidered all this information on the quilt.
Yeah, and it's fascinating that. Yes, I will put the link to Instagram, and,
okay,
and
sure.
They can follow what you explain, because it's really I love it. I love that, and it's something very traditional. All the cultures do that, and it's a lot of story there. It's a storytelling. It's another way.
And I mean, my maternal grandparents, my grandfather was a farmer, so they were pretty poor. And so it's not like quilts now where people go out and buy the fabrics. Like the fabrics all have histories. And that's where it gets interesting.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And also it's take the story back as well. It's a historical document as well as a
yeah, and I tried to, like, even with that first one that I annotated, I'm doing each one differently, but with the information, there was an inner border in the pattern, or lack of pattern, really. But so in that inner border, I actually embroidered my own history with this particular quilt, because it used to be on my daughter's bed at the cottage, and then it moved to her bedroom in the house, and, you know, just that kind of history. So there's sort of, yeah, the history that I didn't know about, and then the history I witnessed is both on it.
Wow, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. Let's go to talk about your other side as a creator, is being a mentor. So as a mentor, I am curious to know, what is the major mistake you saw the immigrant artists make, without mentioning, of course, but in general? That's a big question, I know.
Well, that seems almost cruel. I think, okay, I'm going to actually approach this question from a different direction, which is what I've realized from my encounters with new Canadians is how lucky I got it, basically, right? And that I didn't have to reinvent myself. I had the privilege of working in my first tongue, you know, and I think, you know, there's so many challenges. And I think you are a wonderful example for someone who's risen to those challenges and accepted that you're going to have to reinvent yourself rather than fighting it. And maybe that's, you know, and I totally understand, like, oh my God, if I had to go through the experience, I would be like kicking and screaming. It's like, no. So I completely get that. But yeah, and I think the other thing is just like really working hard to find a network, like to find your people, because again, I'm lucky enough growing up here and then even going to school in the same city. I mean, even though I did my master's in San Francisco, I realized you know, my peer group was here in Toronto, and having that peer group is huge. And you know, again, I was privileged to have it sort of built into my education, but finding a way to create it, I think, is and reinventing, being willing to reinvent yourself are the two main things I would encourage, you know, new Canadians to think about.
Yes, no, that's amazing. I agree with you, absolutely. As a newcomer or a new Canadian, I love more than a newcomer, new Canadian. Yes, I absolutely agree with you. Absolutely.
as someone with a second or third or fourth or fifth language and deep knowledge of another culture, that's also your superpower, right? Like you can see Canadian culture, you can see the world from a viewpoint that's novel. And I think you should, consistently try to remind yourself that, what is your challenge is also your gift.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much. Yes, yes, absolutely. I agree. I agree with you. And recently I talk about kind of similar topic, and I love, yes, we are resilient as a creative as well. But today we talk about you, Lyla Rye, and I will love my audience who is new know more about your work, about your talents, because you're multi-passionate and talent artist. So, what motivates you to continue to broaden your artist practice? Because that's sometimes hard.
Oh, I think it sounds awful, but kind of, well, I was going to say boredom, but no, that's not true. I think the truth is I follow one set of ideas in one medium to a certain point, and then I feel like I don't know where to go with it next. And so what I often do is I try to explore those same set of ideas in a different medium. So if I've just made a video installation, okay, what if I made still photographs? What if I made a bookwork? What if I did embroidery? What if I, right? Like, what if, like, how can I rethink those ideas in a different medium? And by switching to a different medium, the first one, sort of that blockade I felt, eventually you start to realize, oh, I could do this. Oh, I could do that. Because you give yourself time to rethink about that set of ideas. And I do try to totally rework my thinking. Like, a video is not the same as a still photograph. You perceive them differently. So trying to figure out how can I explore similar ideas, but different facets of that idea, depending upon the medium. And I grew up, as I said, I didn't do art in high school, but I did grow up making clothes, knitting, crocheting, embroidering. So those hand skills are like, again, my mom grew up in a eldest of 9 in a farm family. She was making mittens for the little ones by the time
For
she
the winter time.
yeah. So, I just grew up making my own clothes and all that stuff. So those skills are, I'm not saying I'm a master tailor by any means, but I have a core understanding and can always up my game on any of those. And I'm fairly confident with any of those too.
I thank you so much for saying that, because I agree with you, and that point is very important. Exploring and connect, because art is that, no, it's connect things and building something new, and also the surprise there. I see the curiosity as well. Of course, you are curious to explore new media, but also your background as well. You don't lose that part. You incorporate that, and that's very, it's beautiful. I relate with you because my country as well, we well, I grew up as well in media, in class media, so I had to do my own clothes as well many times, or reuse my skirt as a t-shirt or whatever. and I had my own style, my fashion style in that time.
Right.
And yes, absolutely, I agree with you.
If I'm gonna have a good day in the studio, I have to get to the studio in the morning. Like I try to avoid getting getting other things done before that, because come 2 p.m. I don't know, I'm just not able to switch gears and think creatively. But if I started out the day thinking that way, I'm okay. And I think, every artist, you have to figure out what works for you, and also what works changes over time. Like I said, doing video when my daughter was tiny, well, my daughter wasn't a napper. Like she only napped once a day for an hour and a half for 1 year of her life, and the rest of the time it was 10-minute naps. So that 1 year, I taught myself video editing because there was that classroom in a book format. We're talking early 2000s. And I could do one lesson. And so, that hour and a half became really precious. And then after that, once I got into it, it was like working late at night. And again, the great thing about that, and the reason why, back to what I said at the beginning, how I was so productive in that time, I think was because, you know what? When it's 2 a.m., you can't do laundry, you can't do groceries, you can't clean the house, right?
Yes.
So it's like, this is my studio time, and there's no distractions. And then I'd have, after that, I'd have a whole, 20 hours to not think about it and just be with my daughter and have fun or do whatever needed doing. And then I could come back to it. So something about that, and I don't know how you can artificially create that. It's hard, but so anyways, I guess that's just to demonstrate how at different points in my life I've managed it differently.
Yes, absolutely. I agree with you. Our time change independent our life project and our real life, and also the place you are as well. Because sometimes if you are in another country, another time, the time zone, all that as well affect your creative mind. No, that's something. It's a long term, but yes, I agree with you.
Editing 20 years ago. And I mean, always having to learn new software, new aspects of a new software, but I haven't really learned any major new software since then. So I thought, oh, it's about time, but I don't want to, they're hard, these ones, and often something like augmented reality, you probably have to learn Blender to model things in 3D digitally and then go to the augmented reality software. So it's multiple. So I just thought, I want to figure out which ones I think I could use effectively before I just delve into learning with no end point or excitement about it. So that's not going to be successful. So so I was very, very
you never know.
I was very pleased to have gotten this opportunity to do it.
I'd like to ask you, how do you think that awards, grants can impact an artist's practice to people who don't know, in your point of view?
Right. Well, I think it's crucial. I mean, it's in the end, it's probably why I moved back from San Francisco to Toronto, just because I just couldn't see a way of making a living. My work's not commercial. It's not going to be, sold out shows in galleries. So I had to think about it differently. And I didn't want to, I'd never been successful at even when I attempted to make commercial things. So I just, accepted, okay, well, this is the milieu I work within. And as well as grants, I think the other thing that Canada has is artist fees as a standard practice within galleries at all levels. So it is a huge hurdle and they are hard to get, but they allow you to think outside of the commercial realm, and they allow you to, to make things that you really want to make rather than that you think would sell. Like they kind of can free you. And I think Canada's whole, the downside of Canada is we don't have the market base that they have in the US, but we also have a different taxation system, a different percentage of hyper wealthy people, whatever. It's just different. But what we do have is we have the whole artist run center culture and artist fees paid. So we have this sort of ecosystem of in the arts that allows for kind of things like installation and video and performance art that don't fit into the commercial world to thrive. And we have a kind of continuous history of that rather than it just happening in times of wealth, which is, I think, how it sort of plays out in the US and similar capitalistic focused art.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a big thing. There's for another episode only to talk about that. We will do it one day. I will not.
Okay.
Because some people, when they ask me question, I have in the podcast one section that you can ask question, and they ask me question about how I get my grants, how I get or I receive this or that. So that's a big. I need to do like a whole episode only for explain that little. Well, not little, that big subject.
Mhm.
So let's go move to your career again. And I would like to know what have been the biggest influence in your artistic career, if you
Um,
have in general.
okay. Well, I mean, probably my daughter. It was one because, there's a whole body of work that came out of her. And then even after the stuff where she was pictured on camera, I looked at like play as a concept, and then more recently with the tree planting videos. So she's definitely one. The other thing is collectives, is right from like I graduated in 1989 from my undergrad, but into a recession in Toronto. And also the art world was dominated by photo text work that was very cool and conceptual, and I was focused on sculpture and installation at that point, and that wasn't really being seen. And so and then my partner, whom I met at York, he was doing his master's, so I knew grad students there, I knew undergrads. I started to notice a sort of sensibility, like there was a feeling in people's work, not everybody, but a group of us, that seemed kind of similar. And so we started talking, and then mentioned it to one of my profs that I had become a studio assistant for, and she said, well, you don't have to just stick with your generation. And so that was important too, because so then we invited two senior artists who we had really admired and felt, again, like that same sensibility, that same feeling in the work, to join us. And because it was a recession, there were all these vacant warehouse spaces. And so we could rent 3,000-4,000 square feet for a month. And we did everything. We designed the poster, we put the posters up, we mailed out the invites, we catered the opening, we hung the lights in the ceiling, we did everything ourselves. But I think the other advantage of these senior artists was that they were sort of known names in the art world, so they actually got the press out. So we got some attention. So, I mean, the first collective, which is still going, believe it or not, 30 years plus years later, is Nethermind. And then, but I've been part of Persona Volare, Hick, which was Heart House Installation Collective. Anyways,
Yes, no, I had, sorry, I had that question because
Yeah.
recently you joined all the artists and made a photo books, no?
Yeah,
Uh,
catalog.
so a catalog, sorry. So
Okay.
I would like to talk about that a little bit. Yeah, I have that question here.
Yeah. So I would say, my daughter, in terms of inspiration, collectives. And then I guess, I guess an undercurrent, even though it's not always obvious in my work, is an interest in architecture and so that early study, but just how we occupy space, or how, whether it's a video or embroideries or whatever, how it can kind of envelop the viewer spatially and become kind of a full embodied experience. And so I guess that's maybe another undercurrent that's always somewhere there.
Process. We almost go to the last moment.
Okay.
It happened so fast. I don't know. I can talk with you all day because we have very similar passions, and I think you are very interesting person. So I love to talk with you. I would like to ask you back to the routine, daily routine, because I love routines. So as a mental process, I feel like it changed your day. So what is the routine that you really, as a creative artist, you stick on?
Um, I mean, this is sort of just something I do to feel good in my body. But as soon as I wake up in the morning, I go and I do a half hour of Pilates. So, and again, I feel like if I don't exercise first thing in the morning, I get achy, I get tired. And I mean, it's mat work. So I'm lying on the ground. So, it's kind of a bit meditative, but sometimes I'm listening to the radio, but that has to happen. If that doesn't happen, that messes me up.
That's amazing. Yeah, don't have
Yeah.
to be something too much, but a little
Just a
5 minutes.
little. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And then I either bike or walk to the studio. So again, I'm getting the blood
Exercise. Yes.
pumping, getting going, and get to the studio. And then and then after that, I kind of just see what I feel like doing. I try to follow what I'm into that day. I find if I try to force myself to do something, it's not very successful. It's like better to say, nah, I don't feel like video editing today. I'm going to work over here. So I try to have a couple, like right now I have a video project and I have some ink drawings I'm working on. And and I just kind of let myself figure out where I want to go with each of those. And there are days when I'm just not feeling it. And I figure, okay, well, I made it here. I try to spend at least an hour there and, and just like see if whatever. Well, I learned recently that, like we have this idea of a muse, right? But the muse used to be considered as embedded in the walls of the studio, right? So
Yes.
if the muse is going to come out and work with me today, that's great. And there are some days where I have to just say, it's not happening today, and try to be kind to myself and just accept that, because I do have
Yes.
generally have a strong work ethic and want to work hard, but I also feel like
It
that,
doesn't. No.
yeah, it doesn't always happen, and you got to also be kind to yourself when it doesn't. So yeah, in terms of
That's
habit,
beautiful. You mentioned that because as I feel like this mentality, the big so productive is burn up us as a artist. No, you have to be every year 3 or 4 exhibition, 3 or 4 that events, and I feel like no, I am go with my own flow and my own ability to
right.
do stuff
Yeah. Well, and I what I often say to mentees is, as a visual artist, you're not the line worker in the factory. You're the research and development department. You're doing the experiments, you're doing the trials, and lots of those are going to not go anywhere, but you can't get to the things that will go anywhere without doing those, right? It's like you can't become whatever Olympic gymnast without doing your stretches and your basic core strengthening.
Exactly.
Not gonna happen.
I love that statement that you said. Is absolutely, I agree with you, and I will really highlight that part because it's true. As an artist, we have to have that little mindset. The Sometimes you work for a year and project and doesn't happen and don't go anywhere, and that's fine too. And you have to feel like it's okay. You try and you do. And I tell that to myself every day because I have few projects that have been like okay, it's an ongoing project. All right, it's fine too. It's fine. We
Yeah.
have to be mindful with ourselves as well.
Yeah, and be kind to yourself. And actually, I just heard a podcast, and it was about that kind of sort of gentle self-talk, and how a lot of us feel like, oh, if I'm not being tough on myself, then I'm not going to improve. But they've done studies, and they've shown the exact opposite. That the tougher you are on yourself, the more negative, it's defeatist, and it makes you feel less, and you don't confront the challenges you're facing. Whereas if you kind of say, okay, I'm only human, it didn't work today, or that failed, it's okay, then you're more open to trying again, mixing it up, so it's actually the exact opposite than what you would think.
Absolutely, I agree with you, and I have that well, almost last question about that, because I know you are huge fans that listen podcasts as well, like me. I love podcasts, and we share a lot the podcast the other day. And yes, I would like to, if you have a specific creative podcast that you want to recommend to, if you remember in the moment.
Oh yeah, gosh, and my problem is choosing one. Well, the one I really, really like currently is Hidden Brain. And it's about research on the brain, perception, cognition, and and I just find I'm always learning things, and I can usually apply it directly to creativity or to other aspects of my, life, health, sense of well-being, and it's amazing. I mean, I listen pretty broadly. Like the other one I really love is called The Stoop. And it's two Black American women. One's African American and one emigrated to the US from Africa, and she's Muslim. And they look at the world from a totally different viewpoint than I have. And so I just learn so much from them. Revisionist History, that's Malcolm Gladwell. He's amazing.
Yes,
Yeah,
I love
that's
it.
a good one. I mean, I don't know, what's another one I really like? Well, a fun one is Everything is Alive, where he interviews inanimate objects. I think this season he's interviewing animals.
Oh, that's beautiful. I will check it out.
Yeah. Everything is alive. Yeah, it's good. Yeah, no, I find podcasts are really great when I'm video editing because I guess I grew up in a household where my mom always had CBC on the radio.
Yes.
So I can tune in, but I can also tune out. And I think I find a bit of comfort because I'm by myself in the studio many hours every day. So I guess I like the comfort of having another voice. And what I love about podcasts is when I realize that, I totally have not been listening for the last 20 minutes. And that was really interesting. I can just listen to it again and maybe I'll pay more attention. So I just love that ability to, have what I want when I want, turn it on, repeat it, turn it off. And and it just feeds me with information that, is fascinating and stimulating. And, I don't try to target things exactly about what's going on in my work. I just kind of want to use it to become a better human being.
That's beautiful. Yes, I do the same with literature and books and all that. I read very eclectic things, and sometimes I discover like, I learned that from a very different source, and it's amazing how you can apply in your daily.
Well, and I feel like that is maybe the great privilege of being an artist is that you don't have to, like, I mean, you are a specialist in making, things in some way, shape, or form, but you're also a generalist. Like you can draw from information in science, in architecture, in history, in anthropology, in biology, whatever field is intriguing you, and you can learn about it and use that information and then transform it. And or maybe more than transform, for me it's about connecting different kinds of information and noticing crossover points and in interesting ways. So I feel like, we're really lucky as artists that we get to kind of explore such a broad range of things in the hopes that, they will help things click together.
Yes, absolutely. I agree with you. And that's one thing I am grateful for, have that opportunity to connect to that, because sometimes it's kind of hard to, but yes, I love science as well, of course. and brain, and I see like a very connecting with the art, the brain and the art, and it's a lot of studio research about that. So yeah, so if somebody's interested, only Google. Like I said, I always Google. Oh, Google is my best research, or go to the library. That's it. I love it. I would like to well. This is episode with Lyla, right? Have been really a pleasure for me to talk with you. We had to do again another with another subject, another team that you work. But I would like to little close now and ask you uh, about what is your next project, what you work on, uh, or what you are exciting to create now. A little bit too close, a little turn around.
Well, I'll be absolutely honest. I'm in a kind of struggle place in my studio work. I finished a great big project and I haven't found a venue for it yet. So I'm a bit frustrated. So
Oh, sorry to hear.
it happens. I'm trying to just sort of breathe, wait, be patient. Yeah, so I've been putting most of my energy into the quilts and the embroidery, and I'm trying to kind of use some of that information in these ink drawings. And I don't feel like they're anything yet, but they're starting to be something. So I don't know, I'm in a funny place. So I'm actually next week, I'm taking an etching class.
Oh,
In all my 8 years of university, I never did any printmaking. So that's exciting. And then I'm also taking a 1-day workshop on photogrammetry,
oh,
which
that's beautiful.
is
With
multiple photos from different points of view that allow you to kind of build a 3-dimensional virtual object.
yes, I want to do that. Is that
Yeah.
open studio or
No, that
gallery?
one is at Interaccess Arts
Oh,
on
interactive.
DuPont. Yeah.
Hmm.
So yeah. So anyway, so I'm hoping that I'm sort of in a searching place of trying to figure out, and I put together a grant application for 2 different projects, but they both kind of require some money. So I also I'm kind of holding back on working forward in those till I know what I can afford to do and what I can't afford to do. So that's sort of
Yes.
part of the reason why I'm in this in-between place.
And it's absolutely fine, Lila, and it's very kind of you that you tell me that, and the listener can listen that, because as an artist, sometimes we have that stage as well, and it's fine. We have to uh, slow down maybe and research and enjoy other things like you will do. Hard playing process. I learned to embrace that as well. That stay there
Yeah.
the I call like a limbo stuff.
Yeah, well,
And
I try to think of it as like laying fallow, which, in farming you have to let fields rest, right? And kind of reabsorb nutrients and get ready for the next, growing season. So I'm trying to look at it that way, that something productive will come out of this period. And
yes,
yeah.
yes,
And
yes.
I
No,
guess
that's so beautiful.
I try to remember what I tell, mentees too. It's like, remember what you tell others, which is like, every step in your journey is necessary. Even
Yes,
if it feels like it's a step sideways or backwards or a standing still, it's necessary, and you can't get to there without those steps.
that's beautiful. I absolutely agree. And talking about farming, I love to plant, do plantings myself with seed. And I every time I'm planting, I feel like it's the same for myself. Now, when I'm planting a project, it's start like a little, and nobody can see, but it's along the road there. It's
Right.
along. So I saw myself like that.
Well,
Okay, you
it's
didn't
true.
see,
And
but
think of all the work that has to happen before it it pierces through the soil.
Exactly.
Right. And like, that's exactly, that's the stage I'm at now. I'm just laying, I'm building roots.
Yeah, excellent.
Or when I was pregnant, and I was exhausted, my partner always would have this mantra he encouraged me to say to myself, which was, I am building a placenta. I am building a placenta. So
That's beautiful.
it's kind of the same as building roots. It's just like you're laying the groundwork,
Look, is an artist as well. How is two artists? How you manage that relationship of being a
well,
Tell me
it's
about that.
both. It's hard, but it's also fabulous. So how do I explain that?
Yes.
Both of us have always worked freelance or self-employed, or I've done sessional teaching, never had full-time jobs. So we're flexible. Our time is flexible. So we can kind of say, okay, you're taking her to daycare this morning and I'm picking her up. And we can kind of adapt each day. We also kind of support each other. We have different skill sets. So if say I want something built to project a video onto, he can do that. He's really good at that. But if he wants a video edited to document one of his works, I can do that. So we try to, our relationship is always based on the concept of even Steven, or at least as much as we can manage.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. So, so we try to be generous with each other. We've had at least one situation where we were both curated into a show when my daughter was really little. And we realized, how can we both be in this show? Like she was not in daycare yet. So I had a bunch of shows lined up in the future and he didn't. So I said, okay, I'll step back from this one because I've got other things coming and you don't. And then fortunately it was with a collective, actually, it wasn't curated. And so that collective continued for a few years and someone dropped out a year or so later. And my partner was telling me about how they were trying to discuss, who they'd bring in or who they'd approach. And I sort of said, well, would they think about bringing me back? So I got to be part of that group anyways. So it's been, it's challenging, but again, I think as an artist, you have to bring your creativity to everything you do. Time management, making money, finding creative ways to not spend money.
Yes,
like thinking and resources and, everything, you got to bring your creativity to the whole package. And and it is challenging. But a professor of mine, she had a kid. She's, I don't know, 15, 20 years older than me. And I remember once, not that long ago, maybe 5 years ago, she said, having a kid is the best thing I ever did. She said, other artists I know who didn't have kids, maybe their career is a teeny bit further ahead, but it was fulfilling as an experience. It connects you with the next generation, with the world, like the people I met through my daughter from, a range of different places, really interesting people that I wouldn't have met in my own tiny circle. And and I'm just, it's been hard, but I'm really proud of how we did it and how fabulous she is.
You survived her. You already
I will survive. Yeah.
Your daughter is a big girl now, so you are, and that's amazing. And
But it's funny, even though you've got a young child at home, and my daughter's 24, so you think, oh, she's a big girl, but at the same time, it's like she still doesn't know what she wants to do. Like, she has a university degree and she's graduated younger than I had. Like, she's still figuring it out. So I don't know if you ever let go of that, caring, watching, worrying,
never know
parental mentality. It becomes less, but then again, the moments that you are needed, you're on call for the emergencies. So you also
I
thing
I
was
know.
that I taught at universities, different universities and colleges for many years. And that was really great. But I got to the point where I was not very happy about it. And it was it actually took a lot of courage, I guess, or just to decide not to pursue that, and so I started doing this mentoring business, and and it's just I don't know, I'm so much happier, and it's not, we always wish things were a bit more than they are, a bit bigger or whatever, but I do really, really enjoy it, and I think getting to meet people like you is a huge benefit to it. Yeah.
You're
So that's all.
beautiful. No, you're beautiful. No, thank you so much. No, I think you're a wonderful mentor, and that's one of the reason I put the first question in there, the mentor question, because I feel like yes, you have been helped a lot of direct or indirect, because I have been myself benefit from your service as well as a mentor. So I feel like yes, it's very important your work and what do you do, and yes, I would like to people really know that part. It's very important to have somebody who can navigate and have the experience in Canada and Toronto, specific Toronto, because Toronto is is a hard
Well, it's
place.
extra challenging in some ways
Yes,
economically, and it's kind of such a
yes,
big art world, but also sort of, I don't know.
yes. No, and absolutely. What do you say about the when you have projects who cost money, because all costs money here, and we have to pay rent, house, and mortgage, and whatever,
Yeah.
all the etc. uh, Having a project who costs money as well is kind of setting back to you. So that's a challenge we are faced as an artist as well. And yeah, so having another set the eye, like you say, in your mentor car is very important. Do you feel like is the new Canadian can benefits absolutely for your service now?
Oh, yeah. I mean, for sure. I mean, I think getting to meet, like, I've done grants at all levels of government. I've done shows in all kinds of contexts and spaces, and I know the place, I know the language, I know the expectations and the standards in the art world. So, whatever is the thing that's stumbling block for you, I think I can give you a bit more clarity on how to work through it. But it isn't easy. I mean, even someone who's grew up here, it's you're constantly having to reinvent yourself or keep yourself relevant once you've been around for a long time. But then again, I try to remind myself of what I say to my students and mentees, which is, if it was easy, we'd be bored.
Yes, of course. You don't have a motivation to
Yeah,
fight.
like, if it was easy, we'd be bored. So this is just the challenge of keeping going. And and I think, like, okay, here's an example. So when I was doing my master's in San Francisco, and we let go of our Toronto apartment, and my partner would come down for 4 months, and then he would come home for 4 months, and he had a friend he could stay with who had kids, and so they were happy for the help. But so when he came down to stay in San Francisco, he didn't have a studio, so he's just working out of our tiny apartment. He doesn't have much money. I'm gone all day. So out of that, he started, like, I taught him how to sew, like, with a sewing machine. And then he started playing with fabric, and then he started making patterns. And then he figured out, oh, we could rubberize, like, put rubber latex on the interior, and they could hold water, and they would collapse, but then also become huge. So he developed this whole body of work out of our tiny bachelor apartment, and the work got huge. But it all came out of actually a place of not having much. And
That's
you know,
as a Cuban, well, we are the third world, that they say, us. So I know I relate what you say. You have to be extra creative with nothing, and from nothing build whatever artist practice you can do it. And yes, you have to use all your imagination plus the little things you have. So that's beautiful to talk about that, because no everybody is vulnerable to explain that in public. No,
yeah.
it's like it's the other side that we have to be realistic.
Hmm.
and
Well, and
and
I think sometimes those constraints are really good for us. Like they bring our creativity to the fore. Like during my master's, there was a woman who had her studio next door, and she was a trust fund kid. That's the weird thing about doing your master's in the United States, especially at a private art college. And she, in the whole 2 years, I think she made 4 pieces. And like she would use like it was rubber latex she was using too. She would use a brush and then she would throw it out. And I would like use a brush and clean it and strip it. I mean,
yes, of
rubber latex is hard to clean, but I would like, milk everything. But I made more work and I had to be more creative because I had less. And so, I think, nobody wants to feel like they're have too many restraints, but I think actually restraints help us, because they help us see, well, okay, how can I get around it? You have to bring your creativity to the fore again, and you have to push, and it's so sometimes, having everything does not ensure creativity. And
oh,
sometimes
absolutely.
having a bit less actually makes you more creative. So
I,
if you can have that attitude and not feel resentful when you don't have stuff, then it's easier to continue.
Absolutely, no, that's a wonderful point, and we can go on because it's a lot of space. A lot of the example, no, like in Latin America, in countries like my country as well, that we are really poor, and we have, when you see the artists there list, is huge. So that contrast sometimes is kind
Right.
of you can see what happened there on their face now. So, but that's another big subject.
We could go on
And
for
yes,
all day, couldn't we?
yes, I would love it. I would love
Thank you
it.
for inviting me. It's been a
No,
lovely conversation.
I'm so happy, and always, as I say, my door is open. My little space here is open to keep going and explore more conversation, other subject, and to keep collaborate as well together. That will be beautiful. Thank you so much, Lyla.
Thank you.